circle back to this character and fitness question. I mean, obviously, we know disclosing is always the answer, but what about those edge cases? Are there certain edge cases you see in your work with applicants now or back when you were at Harvard where it's like kind of unclear whether someone should disclose or how much should they share?
Yeah, so I always fall on the side of disclose, because you never want to be in a position where you should have disclosed and you didn't. That could get you in so much more trouble. I mean, I guess it also depends on what the offense is, but if it's something really innocuous, like, I mean, I say it is innocuous for an admissions standpoint, but like underage drinking or even, a noise violation in college dorm. These youthful indiscretions are meaningless in the grand scheme of things. If there's one of them, if there's a series of them, that's a different story. So, if you had one violation, you were written up about something, in the college dorm, you had a toaster in your room and you weren't supposed to have a toaster or something like that. Nobody's going to care for admissions standpoints. But if you did like a million other things, then it would become an issue. So if, you were written up, but you're not sure if it's part of your college record, you call the school and the school says, we have no recording of that, but you distinctly remember getting a warning, disclose it. It's not going to affect your admissions if it's something really silly and juvenile like that. That is actually something that I've seen a lot of lately, is colleges not keeping records anymore and students getting advice from pre-law advisors saying, oh, there's no record of it, so don't disclose it. Even though it did happen, the school is not asking on the character and fitness question whether or not there's a record of it. They're asking if it happened. So it's really important to pay attention to the question that's asked in the character and fitness question and answer it honestly. And if there's a gray area, I would say 9 times out of 10, the right decision is to disclose, to over disclose.
I would imagine that also there's cases where maybe you call the school, they say there's no record. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe there is a record somewhere.
Right. If you have a record of it and you remember like having to do community service hours for your, public urination or whatever, I don't know. I mean, these are things that happen. Yeah, that's probably a bad example, but people do things and they regret them later. That's human nature. It's just, people make bad decisions, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that your application is going to be affected by a silly thing that you did when you were in college. I mean, the silly thing is a gray area for some people, but it really is, I think for the most part, it really makes more sense to disclose than to ignore it, because that is exactly what happens, is that, people are calling the school saying, I know that I was written up for, moving a couch out of the common room into my room. I know that I did that. I know that I had to do community service work for that. And then the school says, there's no record of it. You do not need to disclose that. The school is wrong if the application says, were you ever, did you ever receive disciplinary action?
Right.
For something? That's the question that's asked. So it's so important to pay attention to the question that's asked and really, truly, honestly answer the character and fitness questions that's asked on the application.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. Now I'm wondering, similar to the addenda question, what is the proper tone? What's the proper length?
Yeah.
What's the proper level of detail to go into on each of these sorts of things?
Right. So you need to give enough information that they understand what it was. You do not need to give you don't need to give too much information. So there's a fine line, I think, because I think brevity is important, but you need the facts. With the tone, you absolutely need to take responsibility for your action. You cannot blame your roommate. You cannot blame, somebody else. You need to take responsibility. That it goes to the whole maturity factor of it. So, we'll go back to the moving the couch out of the common room. In that kind of an explanation, you would say, in June of 2016, my roommates and I were, caught moving a couch out of the common room. We were written up by our RA and needed to perform 10 hours of community service or whatever it was. So you say the offense, you say what it was, what happened, what the result was, and then you say something like, I realize that this is, was a poor decision that I made. But I learned my lesson. Although, you don't want to be trite with you don't want to say something that's kind of cheesy, but I realized that this was that I was breaking the rules, and I fully accept responsibility for my actions, or something like that. But that's all you need. You don't need to say, my roommate Steve was really the one in charge, and I was just going along in the room. You just keep it simple, but you need to include all the facts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you don't need to say, I understand the severe importance of not moving couches. Like,
right. Exactly. You don't need to go into, I realized that I was taking school property and that's wrong. You call it what it was, and it's a silly, a lapse of judgment, a ridiculous mistake. And if it's more embarrassing, like, something that really is embarrassing, you can say in the addendum, I am embarrassed to be disclosing this right now. Mm-hmm. It's fine. I mean, I think you should be if it is embarrassing. But you're taking responsibility for some, poor decision that you made. And we've all made them. You just got caught.
Right. Exactly. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.